Hey, it's Drybear. And I know we're all just getting into the throes of Season 2 for Dragonflight, but we already have the 10.1.5 PTR notes, and there's some interesting changes as well as class buffs and class nerfs in those notes. So today we're going to dive in and check out what we've got in store for us. But first, you should come hang out with me on my live stream. I'm live every single day on twitch.tv/Drybear. If you don't come hang out with me and the community, then the next time you go grocery shopping, the cart that you're going to pick is going to have a squeaky wheel. All right, let's dive into the notes. This is the 10.1.5 latest changes to the PTR. So we're going to check out what's in here. There's some interesting changes. If you haven't checked out Augmentation for Evoker, I recommend doing so. It is pretty fun and pretty interesting. So starting off with this, the Fractures in Time PTR has been updated, which allows more Warlock classes. I think hopefully there's more Shaman classes too. I think we proved already in past expansions, specifically Legion, that anyone can be a Warlock, to be honest, as long as they're evil enough and twisted enough. And I feel like we could do the same thing for Shamans now that Primalists can be anyone at any time for any reason. So this is actually a pretty big addition here. Night Elves, Draenei, Lightforged Draenei, Pandaria, Kulturan, Tauren, High Mountain, Maghar, and Zandalari Trolls. So if you're looking to get more pretty awesome cosmetic presentations with shapes and sizes and proportions, then you can switch over your Warlock, or if you're looking to make one, you can swap it over too. I think this is pretty cool. I'm curious to see where, I mean, we already have Caster Tauren with priests and things like that, but I'm curious to see where all the Warlock transmogs are going to end up. Let's jump into class balance, okay? We've got quite a lot to look in here. There's a couple classes that got a lot, and everyone else just got kind of some minor changes here, but we'll talk at well, generally their position and why they're making these changes, but also what the changes are specifically. So starting with Druid at the very top, Balanced Druid, Astral Smolder duration is now down to 6 seconds from 8 seconds. I don't actually know why they're making this change, and they didn't really leave a description as to why. I mean, Balance is doing quite well, but they decided to just bring this down by 2 seconds. Guardian Druid has been, I would say probably has been at the bottom of the pecking order, though it has been close for all of Season 1 and for the start of Season 2 in the tank role for all styles of PvE content. Part of that problem is damage and survivability when you mess up your cooldowns. I wouldn't, there's no reason to gatekeep Guardian Druids in general, because they are, if played well, very good, and the signs are showing that they will do exceptionally well by the middle of Season 2, especially in M+. They're actually looking pretty strong as of right now. But Untamed Savagery now also increases the maximum thrash stacks by 1. This does give a general increase for damage, which is nice. Thorns of Iron move to row 6, and Galactic Guardian move to row 9. This might be better. I actually haven't really thought through this. Galactic Guardian you almost always want to get, but moving it down to row 9 might make this a little more interesting as of a choice, but we'll see. Evoker Augmentation. This week's changes are intended to make it less trivial to achieve 100% uptime on Ebb and Might, to ensure there's room for player growth and mastery. Additionally, tuning is ongoing, and we will continue to adjust, blah, 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 blah. So what they're doing is I guess, I didn't really pay attention to this, but you can actually very easily get 100% uptime on Ebb and Might, which is the bonus buff. And I guess in this case, they're trying to make that a little bit more gamified. You have to spend more time, more mental cycles, more planning in order to maintain your buff Ebb and Might. And then the set bonuses have been implemented. I don't know why they went back and did Vault of the Incarnates bonuses, since it's going to be pretty outdated by the time we do it. But hey, if you want to, I guess Vault of the Incarnates is going to be a set bonus. Blistering Scales increases armor, and damage done is increased overall. They're probably pretty safe to do this given the DPS support role that they're in. It's kind of strange to have just a flat damage increase, but I also don't think the Vault set bonus is going to matter all that much once Augmentation finally comes out. Interwoven Threads, cooldown reduction. Dream of Spring is now a choice node with prolonged life. Sands of Time now cause your Empower spells to extend Ebb and Might by 2 seconds instead of 3 seconds. This is part of their theory crafting here to try and make it so Ebb and Might takes a little more effort to maintain. Breath of Eon's cooldown increased to 2 minutes. I'm sad to see this. So they had 2 different directions they could go. Breath of Eons is the breath replacement for Augmentation, which is kind of like it's like a group cooldown or a raid cooldown. You mark the target, it counts damage and then blows up at the end based on how much damage was done. by you and your teammates. And it probably 1.5 minutes was pretty shocking because most of the breaths are 2 minutes anyways. And there's a lot of windows that line up on 2 minutes. And maybe that's why they decided to go with this change. It did seem like it was going to be pretty strong at 1.5 minutes. And they could have either made the cooldown longer or made the effectiveness less. And maybe this is the right choice. Just leave the strength for what it is and then make the cooldown longer. And that's just how it ends up being. It probably does feel better to have bigger numbers at the end, and then it means that you have to spend more time timing it properly rather than using it more often. Breath of Eon's damage no longer contributes to other classes' damage accumulator abilities, such as Execution Sentence or Bone Dust Brew. I didn't even realize it was doing that. Blistering Scales and Inferno's Blessing damage now critically strike and use the Applying Evoker's spell critical strike chance. Cool. Chrono War, that means just more chance for gearing opportunities for the Augmentation Evoker, which is pretty cool. Chrono War Absorption is now capped at 30% of the Evoker's maximum health. We do this anyways. It makes sense that they would do it for the Augmentation as well. If you're casting at Spatial Paradox expires, you may still finish that cast while moving. Oh, okay. So this is what allows you to move and cast, and I guess it would like interrupt if it ran out. Yeah, we kind of have things like this in the game already, so that's a nice update. Spatial Paradox range increase now affects more spells, including Divine Hymn, Dream Breath, Rewind, Tranquility, Revival, Light of Dawn, and various other spells it was not increasing before. Wow, okay, that's pretty cool. So healing cooldowns increase for that, so not only can they help with Spatial Paradox, help DPS, but they can also help healers, which is pretty cool. Gives them a nice little raid cooldown that's not just damage reduction, magic absorption, or max HP increase, which most DPS have as a contribution to the group and the raid. Devastation Evoker. The changes below are aimed at compressing the difference in damage that Devastation deals to high health versus low health targets while retaining gameplay texture and mastery's value as a powerful secondary stat. For characters with moderate amounts of mastery, these changes will be neutral to overall damage dealt. Characters with high mastery will see a slight reduction, and players with low mastery will see a slight increase. It's possible they just want to allow you to have more stat distribution, so it's not just powering one. I mean, they already have diminishing returns on stats with Dragonflight as it is, but mastery was just so dang good that I guess they wanted that to be a little bit less. So what they're doing is they're reducing the mastery benefit and then increasing all damaging abilities by 6.5%. I don't think this is going to have too much of an impact on Devastation Evokers in Raid for Season 2. I'm curious what this will do for Evokers in Mythic Plus. It could be that it allows them to stat weight slightly differently for Mythic Plus without having this huge reliance on mastery for tyrannical weeks. And then just having more damage overall kind of helps them. They definitely are doing excellent in Raid and just a little bit below the bar for Mythic Plus. And it seems on paper, at least, that this change will help Devastation get a little bit better at M+, and maybe they can run a little bit more haste, or maybe even some verse to try and keep things stable. Mage, we saw this last season. This is pretty crazy. Look how big this is. This is a big, massive paragraph of changes for fire. We saw at the beginning of Season 1, Arcane Mages were insanely strong. Fire and Frost were pretty bad. They were kind of abysmal. They got changes about this size, both Fire and Frost did, several times over Season 1, over the holidays and through spring, like early spring. And now we're getting it again for Fire. I'm curious as to why they're doing this, but there's a lot of changes here, so let's dive in. Mass Barrier is now cast on yourself and 4 allies instead of 3. Nice little utility update. Fixed an issue with Prismatic Barrier applying to more than 4 allies. Mass Invisibility duration increased by 2 seconds. This should help them in Mythic Plus and maybe even PvP, but otherwise doesn't really matter all that much. Diverted Energies barriers now heal you for 20/40 instead of 10/20, so more survivability. Maybe they're seeing that mages that aren't playing perfectly optimally are dying more than they would like. They did the same thing for Rep Paladin in 10.0.5 and 10.0.7, which had a positive effect. Flow of Time reduces the cooldown of Blink by 2-4 seconds instead of 1-2. Kind of indirect survivability. Temporal velocities, movement speed duration increases to 3 seconds and 5 seconds after using Blink and Alter Time. Temporal velocities, movement speed after blinking is increased by double, so up to 10/20 from 5/10. Incantation of Swiftness now increases movement speed for both invisibility and greater invisibility. Maybe PvP, I don't, I'm curious where this is coming from. Ice Cold can no longer be dispelled. definitely PvP. Fixed an issue that caused displacement to replace invisibility and greater invisibility. Okay, onto fire specs. Those were the general pieces there. Flame Strike has been removed from the talent tree and now is built into the spellbook. I think this is cool. Yeah, I think this is cool. I actually haven't had a chance to play fire much this last season or this season in general on my mage, but I think this is cool. They obviously needed to reclaim a spot on the tree, and what they do is they put these very important spells early up on the tree so that you have to get them, and maybe that just makes it more interesting to have Flame Strike in the spellbook. So we'll see what comes after. Flame Strike cast time reduced by 0.5 seconds, a little bit easier. Cauterize has been removed from the talent tree and now learned at 19. So Cauterize and Flame Strike are now base spellbook. Pyroblast cast time reduced by 0.5 seconds. Mastery Ignite now causes Fire Blast to spread Ignite to 3 targets instead of 4. Slightly less AoE. From the Ashes now increases Mastery by 2% for each Phoenix Flame charge and cooldown instead of for each charge. Pyrotechnics is now located on row 2. Improved Flame Strike has been renamed to Surging Blaze and now increases the cast speed of Pyroblast and Flame Strike by another 0.5 seconds and their damage by 10%. So they made Pyroblast and Flame Strike faster by default, and then you can make them even faster with your... And maybe what they're trying to do with this is to make fire a little bit more accessible so that you don't need to be on a streak or getting procs to use these spells. So that if you're kind of picking up fire for the first time and you're not managing your procs or your streaks properly, it feels very clunky. So maybe they're just trying to smooth that out, would be my guess. Surging Blaze is now located on row 3. New talent, Fuel the Fire. Flame Strike has a chance equal to 100% of your crit chance to contribute to Hot Streak. That's kind of a nice quality of life. That should flow pretty nicely. Fuel the Fire is now located on row 4. Pyroclasm has been removed. Sun King's Blessing now increases the damage of your next Pyroblast or Flame Strike by 300% in addition to giving combustion. Temporary buff granting Sun King's Blessing that increased damage and combustion has been renamed to Fury of the Sun King, and it now has new icon to better differentiate between the stacking buff and the actual buff. Cool. Fury of the Sun King duration increased to 30 seconds, up from 15 seconds. Duration being doubled on Fury of the Sun King. That's awesome. That makes it a lot easier. I'm wondering, let's keep reading. New talent, Unleashed Inferno. While combustion is active, your Fireball, Pyroblast, Fire Blast, Scorch, and Phoenix Flames deal increased damage by 40% and reduce the cooldown of combustion by 2.5 seconds. Nice. Unleashed Inferno is located as a choice node with Sun King. Intensifying Flames is a new talent. While Ignite is on 3 or fewer enemies, it deals increased damage. A little bit more single target as an option, or maybe just being able to use Ignite freely between the two. This feels like this is an M+ change. Although it doesn't, I feel like Fire, maybe they do. I mean, I don't know. I think mages are a little weak starting. It's the same thing. Arcane is best right now, but as we go into week 2 and week 3, I think Fire and Frost are going to come up. This feels like a Mythic Plus change. Intensifying Flames is now located on row 5, replacing Cauterize, because remember, Cauterize is in the spellbook now. Fervent Flickering is now located on row 4 after Phoenix Flames. Improved Scorch max ranks reduced to 1 instead of 2, and damage dealt to targets with a debuff increased to 4% per stack. Call of the Sun King now increases Phoenix Flames by 15%. Firefall's number of fireballs and Pyroblasts required to call down a meteor reduced to 15. Whoa, down from 30. Firefall no longer grants double benefit from hitting players. Firefall is no longer a choice node with Pyromaniac. Maybe they just want people in PvE to more consistently run Firefall. So now, instead of getting double stacks from hitting players, it now is just the same for PvE and PvP and is no longer a choice with Pyromaniac. And Pyromaniac is now located after Feel the Burn and Improved Combustion choice node. Conflagration damage every time increased by 12%. The chance for enemies to flare up increased to 15% from 10%. That's good. I think that's a good change. Master of Flame now spreads Ignite to 2 additional enemies during combustion instead of 4. Master of Flame is now located below Firemind and Improved Combustion choice node. Fevered Incantation max ranks reduced to 1, down from 2, and the crit damage increased to 2. So you need less, max ranks is reduced, but you get double the value of crit damage. So it's a little bit faster to get online. Fevered Incantation now located on road 8, replacing Pyroclasm. Wildfire no longer increases ignite damage. Instead, it grants crit damage and an additional crit strike damage when you activate Combustion. Hyperthermia's duration increased to 6 seconds, an extra 1 second in there, and it's now located on the final row. So a little bit stronger because it's lower in the tree, and it's now at the very bottom of the tree. Interesting. Fiery Rush is now located on row 9, directly after Kindling. Living Bomb cooldown increased to 30 seconds. Damage over time increased by 30%, and explosion damage increased by 20%. What? Living Bomb gets over triple the cooldown, but gets more dot damage and more explosion damage. I actually am not sure how I feel about this. Maybe it's to save globals so that you can spend more time on your streaks and other abilities, but 30-second Living Bomb. Interesting. I guess we'd have to play it. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not sure if I like that or not. Kindling now causes Scorch critical strikes to reduce Combustion's cooldown in addition to its current effect. Convection is a new talent. Each time Living Bomb explodes, it has a 35% chance to reduce its... so this... All right. The conundrum has come together. Okay, so the reason they did this... why we keep reading, folks. 30 seconds on Living Bomb, but each time Living Bomb explodes, so if it spreads enough, you get a chance to reduce its cooldown by 2 seconds. So I think if you do this in AoE scenario, this probably makes it so that Living Bomb is more of an AoE skill, because if you only use it on one target and it explodes once, not much of a cooldown reduction, but if it spreads and explodes a lot, then you can get a pretty decent cooldown reduction, so that this probably just makes it so it's less of a part of the DPS rotation for single target and is more of a part of the DPS rotation for AoE. Okay, so that's interesting. Convection is now located at row 7 after Living Bomb and Incendiary Eruptions. Meteor is now located on row 9 of the fire tree. Meteor no longer splits damage between targets hit by default, and its damage is reduced when hitting beyond 8. So Meteor is full damage up to 8 targets. Whoa. Ow. Wow. Okay. This kind of puts Meteor more in line to what balanced druids can do in Mythic Plus. And in some situations, there are obviously AoE fights in Abyss right now, but this is interesting. And Meteor's damage is up by 10%. So this is actually really cool. I think this should be pretty fun. It actually kind of makes me want to play Fire in Mythic Plus. New talent, Deep Impact. Meteor's damage is increased by 20%, but is now split evenly between enemies hit. Additionally, its cooldown is reduced by 15 seconds. So damage up and no split between up to 8 targets, which is nice. No longer supposed to damage evenly between targets by default, and its damage is reduced when hitting on 8. And then you can scale it up, but then it splits. So it's more of like a small AoE single target ability, but you have to talent into it. So maybe they're just trying to make the fire tree a little bit more enriched, right? So that you have, for example, you have ways to modify Meteor to be a little more single target if you want to. If you want to have Living Bomb as an AoE option, there's a new talent for that. You can do modifiers for Firefall if you want to pick that up. Intensifying Flames is an option for Ignite in single target options. Combustion modifiers, which is pretty cool. Flame Strike can contribute to Hot Streak, which is really nice based on your crit, which is awesome. Yeah, okay, so maybe they're just trying to make the builds a little bit more varied and a little bit more enriched. So that is Fire Mage. If you're a Fire Mage main and you know, I wouldn't say I'm like an expert in Fire Mage, let me know what you think about these. Let me know what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear from you. Paladin, Holy. I'm actually playing a whole bunch of Holy Paladin in Season 2. Huge fan of it. I want to get the Abyss tier sets for my Mog collection. Second Sunrise is removed. Whatever, goodbye. Breaking Dawn is now a 2-point node and has moved to Second Sunrise's previous location. New talent, Reclamation. Holy Shock and Crusader Strike refund up to 15% of their mana cost and deal up to 50% more healing or damage based on the target's missing health. This is pretty nice. I would say that there's definitely a bit of an issue with mana for Holy Paladin in Season 2, which I didn't really feel in 10.0.5 or 10.0.7, but I'm definitely feeling it now, you know, like doing like high Uldaman keys with lots of AoE, or Underrot, the last boss that goes on for a long time, especially this week for Tyrannical. It definitely feels like it's harder to maintain mana. So I'm guessing we're going to see more mana adjustments here Imbued infusions now reduce the cooldown of Holy Shock by 2 seconds. Nice, I'll take that. Handed Divinity now reduces the mana cost of Holy Light by 50% instead of 100%. Question mark? Divine Favor now additionally reduces the mana cost of Holy Light by... Okay. So Handed Divinity plus Divine Favor means that the mana cost of Holy Light is about what it was. And now you just need to have a different separation of talents for that. Tyrion's Devotion now also causes Light on Hands to restore mana. Like it. Faith's Armor now triggers from World of Glory instead of Shield of the Righteous. Thank God. That is awesome. That means you don't have to spend 3 Holy Power on a random Shield of the Righteous in order to get Faith's Armor. That feels really good. That's a cool change. Glimmer of Light now triggers its healing or damage on its current target at full value if dispelled. PvP change. Awakening can now trigger its stacking buff while its Judgment Empowerment is active. Can now trigger its stacking buff while its Judgment Empowerment is active. That's awesome. Daybreak now restores less mana. Okay, so less reliance on getting the Holy Power there. Avenging Crusader now costs 18. Avenging Crusader now additionally costs... It used to cost mana, then they made it cost Holy Power. Now it costs Holy Power and mana. Word of Glory now costs 6% mana. Light of Dawn now costs 6% mana. Crusader Strike now costs less mana. Holy Shock now costs less mana. Divine Revelations refunds less mana. 0.5% less mana. Flash of Light healing increased by 25%. Holy Light healing increased by 15%. And fixed an issue that caused Judgment Power. So what they're doing here is they're making it so your Holy Light spenders cost mana. They're reducing some of the mana refund, and they're increasing some of the casting. So I think what they're trying to do here is that if you go full Holy Power spending, you don't have infinite mana. And if you decide to use the casting abilities, they're more worth it, and you don't run out of mana like crazy. Okay, so that's kind of what they're shifting around here. And then Avenging Crusader costing mana means that they basically are indirectly nerfing, not indirectly, they're directly nerfing the Avenging Crusader like M+ build, where you can just kind of sit on Holy Power with Divine Toll and stack up mana and then not have to worry about it. And they want you to be able to cast more with Divine Favor, Holy Light, Flash of Light, and then that should be a little bit more value, and then they want to chunk more mana more down. So, okay, interesting. This probably affects M+ the most. This probably affects PvP quite a lot, considering that you kind of rely on these anyway. Actually, this is probably a good boon for PvP, because you can't always be stacking Holy Power in PvP. Sometimes you have to pillar hump, and you can't use, you can't use a Crusader Strike and things like that. So this makes it so PvP is a little bit stronger, and then M+ is a little bit weaker. And then Raid, I'm not sure. I mean, I guess it depends on how the set bonus affects your Holy Light and reliance on Prism and Hammer of Light. But there you go. Priest, new talent, Benevolence, increases the healing of all your spells by 3%. In the class tree, Power Word Life now shares a choice node with Benevolence. So if you decide you don't want to run Power Word Life, you can just get a flat healing increase. I don't know why you would do that. I feel like Power Word Life is superior to this, but maybe it's just an easier choice for people that don't want to, get the weak aura that shows when someone's below the health threshold, and then you can heal them. There's now a connection between Light's Inspiration and Benevolence Power Word Life. That's cool. Essence Devour is a new talent. Attacks from your Shadow Fiend and Mindbender siphon life from enemies, healing a nearby injured ally. All right. Free Shadow Fiend healing. Void Shift now shares a choice node with Essence Devour. Shadow. We're adjusting the mana economy of hybrid DPS, starting with Shadow. The current flow can feel restrictive during combat with how quickly mana depletes. Our goal is to allow for more continuous cast of utility and healing spells while maintaining limits on how much hybrids can contribute. Right now, Shadow Priest can do absolutely, they can do maybe about the same healing as a tank. And in bursts, they can do like 60 to 70% of a healer's healing. It's actually insane how much healing they can provide, specifically on high M+ keys. It's not as powerful in Raid, but in M+, they can do seriously high burst healing, which is crazy. Mana pool level 70 increased to 250,000 instead of 50,000. Mana regeneration increased by 150%. Flash heal now costs 10% of base mana instead of 5%. So if you spam cast, you burn out faster. But if you're doing utility spells, you have more mana overall. Powered Shield now costs double the amount of mana. Dispel Magic now costs 14 15% of base mana, up from 2%. So I guess your purge, if you spam it, you're gonna burn mana like this is like 7 times bigger. It's like, oh my god, that's so much. Master Spell costs 20%, up from 11%. This doesn't matter that much. It's a long cooldown anyways. Renew now costs 4% of base mana, up from 1.8%. Prayer of Mending now costs 4%, double of the original 2%. Divine Star now costs 2% instead of 0.5. Halo now costs 4% instead of 1%. Empowered Life. So basically they're giving you more mana overall, more mana regeneration, but if you spend time being an off healer, you're going to burn out pretty hard, which is interesting, I think. And I think that makes sense. Some of your utility spells cost mana anyways, and if you use them, you didn't have a chance to do anything. But if you decide you're going to start spamming flash heals as a Shadow Priest, you probably should run out of mana pretty fast. Overall, I think it's good. I like some of these changes up here for Priest in general. I'm curious if people are going to pick up Benevolence, or if this is just like a don't make me think about Powered Life option for players that are maybe new to the class. And maybe this parse is better. I don't know. But I feel like Powered Life, if you're paying attention and using it properly, is going to be superior. It's just so amazingly good, especially for Disc that needs that single target healing in raids for general. Shaman, we're making some more adjustments to Ancestral Guidance this week to allow it to once again work with all of your abilities, but with a cap on how much can be healed per second. This should keep AoE damage or healing scenarios stronger than single target with regards to healing throughput, but should lessen the power of individual abilities doing tremendous amount of healing in a single moment. This is one of the many reasons why Resto Shaman is so good in Mythic Plus right now. They're easily top 3, top 2. They're so good. Ancestral Guidance has been reverted to work with all damaging abilities, not just single target, which means you can chain lightning again. And now it caps the amount of potential healing per tick at 20% of your maximum health up to 3 targets. So your gear will affect, your gear and your eye level will affect how good Ancestral Guidance is, which they do it on most things. It's not that atypical. And it can no longer cause healing from non-class abilities like trinkets, weapon enchants. Dang it. Okay, so we can't do the big burst DPS trinket with Ancestral Guidance for crazy DPS output. A shame, but probably necessary. Okay, Warlock, another big change set here. Added 2 new imp color customization options. Nice. Final Fantasy XIV just got Mogs for glamours for Scholar and for Summoner pets. So awesome that we get this here too. Customize your demons in the barbershop is still under development and will be available in a future PTR update. So that's exciting. I think that's pretty cool, especially for demonology, but just in general. Affliction. Developers note the number of casts required for Affliction to properly set up is high and something that can feel especially punishing. Yes, that is a very true statement. Good job on hitting the nail on the head. This is one of the many reasons why Affliction has struggled in Dragonflight, is that their ramp up time and their ability to change targets, even with the changes they've made, is still pretty poor to moderate at best. We're replacing Malefic Affliction and implementing changes to Dread Touch and Doom Blossom to make Affliction's rotation more accessible and less punishing. Malefic Affliction has been removed. New talent, Xavius's Gambit. Unstable Affliction deals increased damage. Xavius's Gambit is located in Malefic Affliction's previous location. Dread Touch has been redesigned. Malefic Rapture causes targets to suffer from your unstable affliction to take 30% additional damage from your damage over time. Okay, so your spender when you have Dread Touch means that all targets that have unstable affliction take more damage from your dots for a very respectable period of time. Okay, that's actually really good. I like that. Doom Blossom has been redesigned. When Seed of Corruption damages targets suffering from unstable affliction, they explode for shadow damage. Doom Blossom plus Seed of Corruption, this should help them in Mythic Plus quite a bit. Demonology, we've got quite a good chunk here. We're working to reduce the peaks and valleys of Demonology. That's all there was for Affliction. I need to sleep on this. Malefic Affliction removed. A way to scale unstable affliction. Dread Touch now giving you a damage window for dots, and then Doom Blossom is just kind of a nice change for SOC. So okay, what? This does make the rotation easier because you don't have to worry about this, and it just makes your base abilities stronger. Yeah, Affliction mains, let me know what you think about this. This feels a little severe, but let's see. Demonology, working to reduce the peaks and valleys of Demonology's throughput by depowering Call of Dreadstalkers. And this allows us to recompensate by increasing the throughput of Demonology's other abilities. We hope to have those tuning adjustments soon. Lastly, the demonic core economy has been too generous in Dragonflight. We want to return demonology to a place where Shadow Bolt is frequently cast. Demon Bolt damage feels impactful, and the number of instant casts available is a bit more limited. Okay, that's probably right. I feel like that's probably right. I actually don't remember what the demonology set bonus is this season. I'd have to go look that up, but I feel like interesting. I generally would agree with this. I think hard casting Demon Bolt and skipping Shadow Bolt does feel a little wrong for the flavor of the spec, but I guess we'll see. Ripped through the portal, Demonic Knowledge, Shadow's Bites, Demonic Meteor, and Fell Might have been removed. Fell and Steel has been redesigned. Your primary Felguard's Legion Strike damage is increased by 10%. Your primary Felguard's Fellstorm damage is increased by 5%. Easy win. New talent, Heavy-Handed. Increase your primary Felguard's critical strike chance by 10%. Heavy-Handed is now located in Fell Might's previous location because it is gone. New talent, Cavitation. Your primary Felguard's damaging crit strikes deal increased damage. So you have Heavy-Handed, crit strike chance, and Cavitation, crit damage for your Felguard, okay? Cavitation is located in Umbral Blaze, which got removed. New talent, Shadow Flame Acolyte. Shadow Bolt damage increases 15%, and Demon Bolt deals 10%. So Shadow Bolt and Demon Bolt getting stronger when you run Shadow Flame Acolyte, and it's now located in Demonic Knowledge's location, which is now gone. New talent, Imperator, increases the crit chance of your Wild Imp's Fell Firebolt by 5-10%. Imperator is located in Demonic Calling's previous location, because that got removed. New talent, Dirty Hands. Hand of Gul'dan deals 8-15% increased damage, and the crit chance of Hand of Gul'dan is increased by 8-15%. Okay. Not a very sexy one, but effective. Dirty Hands is located in Inner Demon's previous location. Fell Covenant has been moved to Shadow Bite's previous location. Fell Covenant now is 1 rank instead of 2, which gives you a free extra point. Umbral Blaze has been moved to Fell Covenant's previous location. Dread Calling has been moved to Rip Through the Portal's previous location because that is now gone. Dread Calling is now 2 ranks instead of 1. That's where the point went. Demonic Calling has been moved to Demonic Meteor's previous location and is now 1 rank instead of 2. Inner Demons is moved to Dread Calling's previous location and is now 1 rank instead of 2. So you're net 1 skill point, which is pretty cool. That's nice. So, well, actually you're net 2, which is nice. And then some changes here to make just some general damage up for Felguard in general, and then some removal and some cleanup. I think this just simplifies it. I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but it probably will make them a little bit more consistent in damage, and will probably give their parses a little bit higher, but you know, does it remove some of the skillful element? I don't know. Maybe. That's my first impression of that. PvP. Evoker. New PvP talent. Dreamwalker's Embrace. Verdant Embrace tethers you to an ally, increasing movement speed by 40% and causing enemies who pass through the tether to be damaged and slowed. The tether lasts up to 10 seconds or until you move more than 30 yards away from your ally. They might be trying to do this because of the lower range for evokers versus other healers and other casters, and having that movement speed means you can fly to a teammate and keep up with them or reposition to a new area. I mean, I think that's cool. Maybe it's a problem, and it could also be targeting specific arena maps with ramps and things like that, where if you end up getting knocked off of like Blade's Edge or something like that, maybe you need the movement speed to get out of dead zones. Mage Arcane, new PvP talent, improved mass ability. The cooldown of mass invisibility is reduced to 1 minute, and it can affect all allies in combat. And remember, they also increased the duration of it, which is really cool. So you have longer duration, and you can modify it if you want for Arcane to give a shorter cooldown, which is kind of interesting. Paladin Holy in PvP, Divine Plea. After casting Daybreak, you generate mana. So this is to combat all the changes they got for PvE, which is going to make all of their holy power abilities cost more mana, including Avenging Crusader. But your healing and damage is decreased by 50%. No longer restores mana for each glimmer consumed. Cleanse the Weak has been redesigned. When you dispel an ally within your aura, 1 ally. No, man. 1 ally within your aura is dispelled with the same effect instead of all allies. This makes it safer for Unstable Affliction, but it makes it a lot weaker. However, healing allies with your Flash of Light or Holy Light will cleanse all diseases and poisons. Okay, an interesting trade-off there. It probably is an overall net gain. It makes it a little bit more accessible against Affliction Warlocks in PvP, but now you have to use your single target heals in order to cleanse disease and poisons. So I think Cleanse the Weak is still good to pick up against like rogues and things like that, but interesting. Flashlight now heals 50% more in PvP combat, down from 80%, and Holy Light now heals for 75% more, down from 100%. Keep in mind that they got a throughput healing on Flashlight and Holy Light for PvE, which will carry over to PvP, so now that's going to be there, so we're trying to keep that limited, and that's going to be kind of down there, although I don't know if 30% less in PvP is the same. I mean, they got like, what, 15% or 12% in PvE. So I think it's overall going to be lower, but maybe they just needed help in PvP. I actually haven't been bringing my Holy Paladin into arenas all that often. So maybe they just needed a little bit of a nerf there. UI interface, arena unit frames have been updated. Arena frames now gray out if players are stealthed or invisible. Interesting. Okay. Fixed an issue where battleground flag carriers were not showing. Good. Well, in a scenario, minimap blobs are now yellow instead of blue. Neato Burrito added a new quest. This might just be for colorblind options or just overall visibility. Added a new quest icon to indicate important quests. Neat. World events. The Kalimdor Cup. Rediscover Kalimdor skies with a new dragon racing world event. Challenge 16 races across Kalimdor in normal, advanced, and reverse variations to earn Riders of Azeroth badges to exchange for rewards with Maztha. I wonder what the rewards are. That should be pretty fun. I think dragon riding events are fun. Head to the whole holiday enthusiast outside Valdraken's Bank to pick up the initial quest. Cool. So that is the recent update for 10.1.5. Some pretty big changes for Paladin, for Warlock, specifically Affliction and Demonology, for Shadow Priests indirectly. I mean, it's mostly just going to affect some of the high-end pushing. We also have Fire Mages, pretty big changes. I'm curious what this does. This might, I think overall this is probably going to be really good. The cast time reduction, the less reliance on streak and proc management, plus some changes to Sun King's Blessing, and some shifts around for some of the new talents. I think this probably makes Fire feel better. We have some changes for Augmentation, which, you know, isn't live yet anyway. So in general, I think that's going to be pretty cool. I can't wait to have that come out. So let me know what your thoughts are down below on the 10.1.5. If your class is in here getting reworked or changed, let me know how you feel about it. If you enjoyed yourself today, leave a like down below. You can support me and my work on Patreon and view Patreon exclusive content, link in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.